Protests continue in cities across the United States following a surge of ICE or Immigration and Customs Enforcement raids there. Under the second administration of President Donald Trump, ICE reported over 100,000 arrests since January. That's almost double the figure from the same time last year. The White House set a daily quota from 1,000 to 3,000 arrests, raising concerns the agency may start targeting minor cases to hit the target. As for Filipinos in the U.S., the Inquirer reported 2 Filipino green card holders detained on separate occasions upon returning from a trip to the Philippines. Llewellyn Dixon and Rodante Rivera were arrested by border authorities at the Seattle-Tacoma airport over decades-old convictions. Dixon was detained on February 28 for an embezzlement case 20 years ago, while Rivera was held on May 18 for an old nonviolent offense. Both have since been released after immigration judges ruled their old convictions no longer met the standard for deportation. And let's hear more updates on what happened to both cases, as well as the situation of our kababayans in the U.S. Joining us tonight is Bea, who is part of Tanggol Migrante network in Washington, a migrant rights advocacy group at the forefront of calls to protect Filipino immigrants detained by ICE. Welcome to the big story, Bea. We're holding your surname at your request for, I guess, your protection. Tell us the mood that's prevailing among the Filipino communities scattered all over the U.S.
Hello po, ako po si Bea from Tanggol Migrante at saka the National Alliance for Filipino Concerns o NAFCON. Kami po ay isang alyansa ng iba't ibang mga organizations dito sa US who are really responding to the issues ng mga Pilipino dito sa US at saka sa Pilipinas din through advocacy and action. And really to respond to your question of what is the mood right now, I think people are angry, upset, confused, but through the work of our network, also very hopeful in our fight. And we are very determined that we will continue to advocate for Filipinos in detention.
Aside from those 2 cases, do you know of others? It's quite difficult to get information, as well as perhaps Fil-Ams arrested in the raids of ICE.
Yeah, so I can, here in Washington, we know of quite a few Filipinos who are in detention, and it was really through starting with si Auntie Lynn and saka si Kuya Dante, who were actually able to connect us with different Filipinos that we did not know of at the Northwest Detention Center. I think that's really to show that while we don't know the firm numbers of Filipinos in detention, I think it is very concerning that that information is unknown, but it is really through this network and through our ties with Filipinos who are seeking for support where we're able to get that information.
So do you have figures of those currently in detention?
In Washington State, we know of at least 10, but of course, across the U.S., there are still different cases where we know that there are more individual cases. But again, that's our estimate. We are really trying to do our best to understand more what are the true figures of Filipinos in detention, especially as the Trump administration is ramping up arrests to 3,000 per day.
Any idea if those numbers that you just quoted, Bea, are those just from this new Trump or current Trump administration?
I believe this is from the current administration. Talaga po, they have a quota on immigrants, which is so inhumane, I think. So those are some of the numbers that we know right now through our research.
We were able to talk to a ambassador to the U.S., Babe Romualdez, and he said, you know, as long as wala kang record, wala kang ginawang mali, you should be able to consider yourself like safe from these raids. Would you agree with that statement, or are there things slipping through the cracks?
I definitely think that that's not true, and it's also very, I think, dismissive of a lot of the fear that many green card holders are experiencing here, or whether you have a green card or not. I think the Trump administration has been very shameless in targeting whoever. Some of this rhetoric, I think I've heard news of people, of them even detaining people who are homeless at this point because they're not able to show proof of a license. So I don't think it's a fair statement to say that it's just if you have some sort of conviction, because at this point, Trump is definitely fear-mongering to raise and heighten this repression and intensifying the repression of all migrants and immigrants here in the U.S.
Okay, but Bea, tell us about the sentiment of the Filipino-American community there in the United States. Is it true that the community right now is divided in a sense that, while some are against it, there are also those who support the deportations, the arrests, the detentions?
I think there are some sentiments, but I think especially with the cases of Auntie Lynn and Kuya Dante, people are starting to take a turn and really see themselves in Auntie Lynn and Kuya Dante. I think so many Filipinos abroad can see their stories in those who have been detained. I think, for example, for myself, I grew up in a care home in a big community of Filipino caregivers who had different vulnerable statuses, but at the end of the day, we looked out for each other. I think we have a common unity that Filipinos, we work hard and we sacrifice so much to send money and support to our families back home that I think because we've been able to share the stories of Auntie Lynn, Kuya Dante, Ate M, and Kuya Max. Those are a few of the Filipinos in detention that we know. I think people are starting to change their view that there are good versus bad migrants. I think we can all agree that yung mga karapatan ng Pilipino, no matter where you are, should be upheld.
What concrete action do you want from the Philippine government or from our embassy there in the U.S.?
Yeah, I think the Philippine government they've made many statements and have even sought to take credit for the support of migrants in detention, but in reality, they haven't really adequately responded and fulfilled the urgent requests for support that have been made by Filipinos and their families. I think just to give some context of what Tanggol Migrante is, it's both the Filipinos who are in detention, but also their families, and they're really the ones who can refute these claims that the Philippine government has been addressing some of these concerns. But really what these families are wanting is urgency and being proactive in these cases. We've been working, again, closely with the families of those detained, and in spite of all of the efforts to reach out, Romualdez keeps stating that the embassy's door is open for us, but he has still yet to come to the table and meet with us and directly hear our concerns. So I think that's really what we're wanting the Philippine government to do, is to actually advocate for the release of Filipinos from unjust detention and to be proactive in the monitoring and advocating for those who are being really targeted by the Trump administration right now.
Bea, we thank you for your time, and the Big Story will be closely in touch with your group to monitor the cases of the 10 who are still in detention. Thank you so much for your time. That was Bea from Tanggol Migrante Network in Washington.